the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. I hope you're well today. My name is Jerome, and I am the Sane Environmentalist. Today, I wanted to start the show out by basically reading a little comment put up by a fellow named Dane Wigington, who is a geoengineering expert and is the founder and organizer of geoengineeringwatch.org, one of my heroes in this battle. But this is what he says. Industrialized, militarized civilization can only be rationally described as an ongoing train wreck of total insanity. The unfolding disaster is now accelerating exponentially. The beyond blatant behavior of those who wield power should be fueling unbridled anger and outrage in populations. But so far, the majority of the masses, especially in first world nations, are completely complacent and content with their material world, toxic vaccinations, GMO foods, fluoridated water, contaminated air, and plenty of power structure propaganda. All of these have taken their toll. Perhaps the greatest weapon the power brokers wield is weather and biological warfare. Both have long since been fully deployed, and even now, the vast majority are completely asleep at the wheel. Once the foundations of the current paradigm completely collapse, a time which draws near, the paradigm we formerly knew will overturn in the blink of an eye. Though the rest of the story is not yet written, how much of it may affect the equation for the better if we all efficiently engaged in the battle to sound the alarm. None are helpless. All are needed at the front lines of the fight to wake the masses. If we have to have any chance of turning the tide, the effort will take all of us. Dane Wigington. I want to thank him for that. That was a well-written piece. Today I'm joined by my cohort in this enterprise, Lonnie Clark. Good morning, Lonnie.
Good morning, Jerome. It's nice to be here with you. Thank you for asking me. It's funny to be a guest on what was my show. Now that I'm sort of sharing it with you, it's interesting. But I'm glad that you're here with us. And this conversation, I'm glad that you brought this up because it sort of goes along with this whole. I had Guy McPherson on the other day, and he's very controversial because he has upped his time frame as to when it's all over with for humanity, so to speak, but it's and having done this radio show now for 2.5 years, paying attention to nuclear. I started because of Fukushima. I was reading the nuclear alerts, ran into the people from St. Louis. A lot of the people that are victims can't talk to me because their cases have not been settled. And it is better for them not to discuss anything publicly. So this is why there's a lot of people who are victims that love our show who have contacted me, but can't be on our show. You know,
that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's people you've heard that have been on here, and then after that, you don't hear from them anymore because after they were on my show a couple times, their attorneys went, ixnay on that stuff, man. You're not done. I mean, this is the issue with the nuclear industry. Anything you give them it's a weapon. Just like Dane has this. Dane's page is great. I suggest everybody go there. Go to the page just on methane. And read what his this is just so beyond comprehension what they know about. Without the knowledge or consent of populations, governments around the world colluded and collaborated on the organization and deployment of incredibly destructive climate intervention programs that are further fueling the catastrophic consequences of anthropogenic activity on planet Earth. Of all the forms of decimation the human race has inflicted on our formerly thriving biosphere, the ongoing geoengineering assault is mathematically the most ominous and destructive.
Yes, exactly. I agree. And it is taken, compared to nuclear, if this continues the way it is.
Well, he has a whole page on nuclear radiation and geoengineering, 2 threats to life on Earth. This is why when I was talking to you about it, I was glad you wanted to talk about geoengineering because it's been on my mind that, honestly, as a person who started hearing about Agenda 21, maybe like 1998, I started hearing about it, right? I thought it was kind of a crazy thing that wasn't really a feasible idea. And now we're living with it. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it is in action.
Yeah, they have implemented it. They are implementing it. There is a bigger picture here somehow. And there's a quiet underground party which literally controls everything. And we have no control over anything. We have apparently given up that control. And there's a few of us who are awake to that. You know, and I think a lot of people that are awake to that are awake to it, but they're like, well, but what can I do?
Yeah, listen to this is how they are tied up together. Okay, I'm going to read to you these last 2 paragraphs that Dane says. There are dozens of other nuclear plants in the U.S. and around the world that could likewise melt down and the infrastructure breaks down. Nuclear radiation in the air, water, and food supply represents a clear and present danger, the clear and present threat to all life on this planet. Another critical concern is the amount of toxic material being deliberately inserted into the atmosphere, apparently with the aim of affecting the climate.
Yes, exactly.
So they're kind of doing it air, land. It's almost against the 4 sacred things. You know, the 4 sacred things. I just finished a book by Starhawk called The 5th Sacred Thing, and I highly recommend that book to everybody. But the 4 sacred things are earth, air, water, and fire.
Yeah. Okay.
So it seems like they're intentionally going after those 4 things.
Yeah. And what we messed up what I'm seeing is this, Lonnie. I think it's much simpler and greedier and more childlike than that. I think that it's like, okay, so we've got this great thing going, but our carbon emission is going to overheat everything, and so we have to stop that from happening. So how do we do it? Well, I don't know. Maybe we need less sun. Well, what do you do for less sun? Well, how about we reflect some? We spray stuff in the sky and it'll reflect the sun. And so they're like, okay, if we do that, then we work out the math and it'll work, and that'll give us the ability to continue to pump out carbon dioxide at unheard of levels for another 50 years before we have another cataclysmic level reach. So basically what we're doing is we're turning our planet into Venus. We're
Well,
increasing and increasing and increasing the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere.
it's
And
the
the more we
escaping
do that,
methane. It's not just the fossil fuels and the
or
nuclear pollution,
greenhouse
which is helping to warm it up.
gases.
Yeah, but you know what's
Greenhouse
going to
gases.
really make the greenhouse gas is the escaping methane. That's the issue.
Where's the methane coming from? The ice?
Yes, this is the
Polar ice,
danger.
you're right. It is a huge danger. You're right.
Dane Wigington has, I've known about this, and in fact, there's a movie called, which everyone should see to really understand it, because it's really about the scientists who have been studying it, and it's a compilation, it's a documentary of them discussing their end results in a variety of interviews, and the message is the same. It's the title of the documentary is The Arctic Death Spiral and the Methane Time Bomb. So it kind of tells you where they're going, right?
Yeah, I've been hearing about methane issues for the last 8 or 9 years.
Well, you can get that movie on
the
YouTube.
ice caps are melting, and that's going to cause huge releases of methane.
Huge.
And that huge release of methane is going to cause more warming, which will cause more methane, and we're basically terraforming the Earth. That's basically what we're doing. We're terraforming this planet. We're changing it into something different than what it is.
Well, if you don't listen to Jules' show, you need to get a shock. They're changing everything, including humans. I mean, it's not just the Earth; it's all life. These overlords, whoever it is that are running these illicit programs.
Terraforming is. That's what it is. Terraforming is evolving and changing an ecosystem to what you want it to be, or to something different. Doesn't even have to be to what you want it to be. But yeah, I mean, they're gonna this aluminum boron powder that they're putting out into the air, and I'm watching huge contrails today in the skies over Arizona, which is apparently a test ground for this kind of thing. And I read an article just today about, or an interview I saw with Lisa Haven, who interviewed these two ladies from right near here, Prescott, Arizona. And one day they were outside and they saw this big tanker aircraft fly over with the cargo door open on the back, dumping a bunch of stuff into the sky, and fibers fell out of it. And they collected some of these fibers and had them analyzed. And the fibers contain boron and aluminum and cadmium.
But they were just containers. Did you identify? No. Did they identify where the planes were coming from? That's the kind of thing you could find out. That plane is identified somewhere on some flight path. If you find that kind of stuff,
that's one thing that they cover in the Lisa's interview is that. So these two ladies, and they're just regular ladies, are like, well, we got pictures, we got a video of it flying overhead.
Timestamp, right?
And we got an analysis of the material that was falling out of the back, but nobody will acknowledge owning the airplane. Nobody will.
Of course not. But this is, I wonder if that would be a Freedom of Information Act thing, I guess. I mean, there's ways. Someone has to have that plane up there. It came out of the sky. There's a timestamp.
Ignite it.
Oh. Are they near it? It's near an army base? Well, that's who did it.
An Air Force plane.
They probably did it intentionally. They've probably been doing it for years. They're going around just dumping poison as part of their directions. They're order followers, as Dane calls them.
C-135 airplane.
Is that a military plane?
Stratolifter. It's a transport aircraft derived from the prototype 3067-80 jetliner of the 50s. It's narrower and shorter than a 707. It has a back that opens up. It can be used as a refueling tanker.
What did the government do with the toxins?
The government didn't analyze it. They had a private lab analyze it.
Yeah, well, that's part of those pesky regulations that Trader Trump has turned back, honestly.
Well, yeah, it's part of the deal, and it's not his choice. Although it does make more money, that's the whole idea. Right?
Let's be clear. People have a choice. People have a choice.
Do we?
I mean, yes, and I think if, like Barack Obama, this is where I fault 100% Barack Obama for participating, although I've actually come to believe that he was sort of planted there in the same way that I think that Trader Trump was planted there. I think this is all just one big orchestrated, circle. The last real president that we had that was really elected was Jimmy Carter, and that's when they went, we're getting better at this. And they really went deep, and that's when George Bush got very deep. When Jimmy Carter allowed George Bush to say, there's 13 levels above you you don't get to see, when that became a public issue, that's the end of the democracy. You cannot have a third branch of the military branch of the government. Essentially, the CIA is a military branch of the government.
Right, the deep state. You can call them the deep state.
I'm not going to call them by their name. They want us to call them the deep state. They're more like the deep state. Oh, never mind. I don't want to get vulgar, but I think they're taking orders themselves because they're greedy. Just like Trader Trump is doing it for greed. Just like Nancy Pelosi. I heard on Jeremy Scahill's show, The Intercepted, yesterday while I was working. I was listening to the radio. And on his show, there was an African man, and I don't remember the guy's name, I apologize, but he was talking about, people are mad at Trump because he's talking so blatantly, but you know what? He's just saying out loud what everybody else has been doing. Let's be clear. What they've allowed things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, just the blatant bombing of the people in Yemen. That started under Barack Obama. There's so much that needed to end. And this is the thing. People say, well, if they do, they're going to get killed. Well, then that's what they need to do. That's their job. That's the duty. That's called leadership. And they can't murder everybody. And if they start murdering all the really good, honest, like Paul Wellstone's plane got blown up in dubious circumstances. I'm 100% convinced that the people who perpetrated 9/11 killed Paul Wellstone and his family. I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Now people go, well, you're just going on your feeling and your intuition. Yeah. You want me to tell you what? Yes, because all of the evidence points in that direction. It's not just based on, I had this idea. If you look at the details of what happened, the circumstances of that death, it was pretty peculiar. And how we have regular, suicides or plane accidents if you challenge the people that are trying to run the show.
Yeah. In our extremely safe aircraft, which never crash.
Right. Regulated, all this stuff. So, but why is that? Because people allow it. I was thinking about this, Jerome, how...
And that takes me back to what Dane was saying, is that apparently, especially in the first world, humans just aren't, we just don't seem to give a damn what the government is doing to our environment as long as we're comfortable.
That's right. Or the misery it causes.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't cause misery to us. It doesn't cause misery. That's the point he's making.
Well, it is causing misery. Look at coltan. Every time you buy a laptop, you have to have the mineral coltan, which I think they're still losing, 50,000 people a week, a year, a month, or some ridiculous number like that.
From what? Coltan? What's that?
Coltan is a mining... Okay, here. What is coltan? Let's just go to the quick source, which is just Wikipedia, which is not necessary. It's in the... Coltan is a metallic ore from which very similar elements, niobium, also known as columbium and tantalum, are extracted. Coltan mining, specifically in the Democratic Republic of Congo, has been associated with human rights violations. Really? Okay. Let's see what they're talking about. Where can we see this? The United Nations has taken an active role in assessing the state of the world's coltan industry and has cited numerous countries with ethical violations in relationship to coltan mining. I don't think that this article, I think it's been taken out of here. Let me see. But there's huge amounts of people being child labor, slavery. They're being guarded. Basically, what happens is the militia forces the people to work, and they pay them nothing. And this coltan is highly toxic, and it's just it's everything horrible. It's like a war, essentially. It's being run by various little militias. The whole industry. It's like gang warfare.
And it's needed for making laptops, and cell phones as well.
Yeah,
I'm assuming. So it's a valuable mineral.
Yes.
Just like all the gold miners, a lot of people in that part of the world face real difficult employment situations, and
this comes from Breaking the Silence. I found an article on this. It's called Breaking the Silence. Coltan, What You Should Know. Coltan is short for columbiite tantalite, a black tar-like mineral found in major quantities in the Congo. The Congo possesses 80% of the world's coltan. When coltan is refined, it becomes heat-resistant powder that can hold high electric charge. The properties of refined coltan is a vital element to creating devices that store energy or capacitors, which are used in a variety of ways of small electronic devices, especially in mobile phones, laptop computers, pagers, and other electronic devices. Who are the primary exploiters of coltan in the Congo? Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, and other proxy militias are the primary exploiters of coltan in the Congo. In an 18-month period, Rwanda made $250 million as a result of exploitation, slave camps essentially, in the Congo. Although Rwanda and Uganda possess little or no coltan, during the period of the war in the Congo, their exports escalated exponentially. For example, Rwanda's coltan export went from less than 50 tons in 1995 to almost 250 tons in 1998.
Wow.
Yes. Zero cassiterite was transported from the Congo to Uganda in 1998. However, by 2000, 151 drums were transported.
And that's the only source of it.
Mm-hmm. That's an illegal. It's in a notes in a report on illegal exploitation of natural resources in the Congo that is titled "The Consequences of Illegal Exploitation Has Been Twofold: A, massive availability of financial resources for the Rwandan Patriotic Army, and the individual enrichment of top Ugandan military commanders and civilians, and B, the emergence of an illegal networks headed by either top military officers or businessmen." Doesn't that sound like the United States? Yeah, but it's not. That's in rural. I guess we trained them well. The School of America's work perfect here. Foreign corporate exploitation. Although the countries mentioned above directly exploit coltan, foreign multinational corporations have been deeply involved in the exploitation of the coltan in the Congo. The coltan mined rebels and foreign forces is sold to foreign corporations. So the coltan mined by rebels and foreign sources is sold to the foreign corporations, right? Although the United Nations in its report on the Congo do not directly blame the multinational corporations for the conflict in the Congo, the United Nations does say that these companies serve as, quote, the engine of the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So that's interesting, isn't it? Coltan is a very big issue that Americans do not think about, but it's one source of mining that, if they're doing that to human beings, do you think that they're being clean about how they're mining, their mining practices?
Exactly.
That they're not destroying the environment along the way?
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. And then why do we have this issue?
And what, well, this is the thing. Here we are.
Because of our technology.
You're on a laptop. Devices. I'm on a laptop, right? Did you know when you bought your laptop that it was built on this type of seriously horrendous exploitation?
I had no idea. And is it possible, Lonnie, for me to get a laptop which is not made with these materials?
No. They own 90. Well, do you realize what they say? They own 90% of it comes from this area of the world's coltan comes from there. 90%. So I guess you have a 10% chance of. I don't know. I wonder what exponentially with those. We could do the math on that one. I guess. Figure out how many laptops are sold and then take 10% of that. That might be your. And see if your laptop is one of those. So,
yeah, nobody's even thought about a fair to humans, laptop and other things. Look at gold mining. They use cyanide powder for gold mining down in the Congo. These people they're like literally covered with cyanide.
Mm.
And,
this is the sad part. Those of us in the first world that are using the resources, and the United States, I think, uses a good portion of the resources, and I think that's because we don't recycle as much. We have a big throwaway society. In Europe, they still do throw away a lot of food. But there's programs in Europe to recycle their food instead of just letting it go to waste. It's ridiculous that we chop up food and we have people that are hungry and homeless. Yeah. I mean, it's beyond comprehension that is allowed to happen. And this is when you get into, this is interesting because Dane Wigington still has that spirit that we can take it back. He has that American spirit that we can take our government back. He feels like if we can just wake up everybody and we start putting pressure on our elected officials and remind them, give them the information and remind them of their courage. This is what I meant about Barack Obama. If it took him, if he had to get shot to make the point that things are really bad, he should have just let that happen. That's such the coward's way out. That's what made me really. Then when I started, I didn't actually believe that he was in a plant. That was Ed's idea because his grandparents worked for the CIA. Not that he wasn't an American. The interesting thing is they sidetracked that whole conversation about the CIA with the birth certificate thing. And don't you think it's interesting that Donald Trump, he started the birther movement, and now he's going after the CIA himself. And you notice he shut up about the FBI. I mean the CIA, but mostly the FBI he's going after.
Well, he fired Comey, I know that.
Yeah, well.
So
that's because he's impetuous. If he'd have had a cooler head, he would have just said, okay, dude, we'll just let it go. Unless he's done something really wrong and we're going to be shocked at what's going to come out. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would hope there's an ounce of decency in him. But you know what? It's kind of like, why do you expect the narcissist to continue to get better? Because they're not gonna.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
Precisely. There's nothing. It's pretty much because he's not in charge. Bottom line, he's not the one that we would want to talk to.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have any control over what's going on.
He does, actually. That's what makes it scary.
I don't think he does.
You know what he does? He has access. He's supposed to take orders, but he has access. They've already implemented some very terrible things in our country, if you hadn't noticed, already. I don't consider them rolling back DACA a good thing. I don't consider them putting the military transgender people through freak out and having to have it go to court. Those are bad things. That exhibits outright your bigotry. When you're a white supremacist in any position of power, you can implement policy that harms people. Everyone. Yeah. And the anti-immigrant stance that they're taking, like this doctor who's from Poland who got arrested after 40 years of working in our country. He had legal status and they arrested him. For what reason? Because they can. ICE is out of control. Like, this is the thing. This is a bureaucratic authoritarian regime. They're starting with the immigrants. It is outrageous. I mean, I find it to be the Hitler thing. The immigrants or the Jews, we're just going to haul them. I mean, that's how many of them are in our country. You're going to tell me that America's going to let these guys start arresting 8 million people? I don't think so.
That's just never going to happen.
Well, you know what? That's what they said in Germany. It would never happen, but people sat silently while people got arrested. Just like now, this guy from Poland, everybody around him didn't say, hey, screw you, come back with real authority. Like, you can't just take us away and say, we'll tell you when we get there. You have legal rights, and people need to start saying no. You know, this is an outrage, and Americans need to speak up for their fellow citizens. This is the issue, this is what Dana's trying to tell people. Look, it matters. We need to pressure these people to tell us the truth and stop doing this. Because they're not going to do it on their own. If we just keep ignoring them, they're going to keep doing it.
Yes, and they will. You're right.
And I actually do think that Trump is dangerous for that reason. That's the bottom line. He isn't a power to affect our country. And people say, oh, well, the economy's doing good. Not so much. It's kind of a bubble. It is going to burst. This is unsustainable how he's doing this. Because what's going to happen is you take off these regulations, these guys are going to start dumping and polluting. People are going to get sick, and this is why the EPA is being dismantled. They don't want anybody to handle the claims. They have no regard. They are really not interested in taking care of the people. They don't believe in our Constitution. And these are technologists who are taking order from multinational. They have
their own Constitution, dear.
Yeah, they're using the United States for the behest of what I call the overlords. You know. Yeah,
the overlords, the deep state, whatever you want to call them. Those individuals who are truly in control. You know, and so that is, how do you battle that? I imagine even if enough people, like you were talking to me earlier, saying that literally thousands of people showed up at protests, and they were totally ignored.
Pretty much. I mean, that's what happened, right? There was so many people out in the street on Saturday, and by Monday they are like, yeah. Okay, no DACA. Sorry, guys. We'll just let we have to hope that Mitch McConnell keeps his promise. For real.
Wow. I can only say wow to that. If we're dependent upon Mitch McConnell, then we got issues.
Well, we know he's a known liar. It's like depending on Traitor Trump. At least Trump, will lie. Like yesterday, the news was, I'll be glad to testify in front of Mueller. That's like 100%. Like, he is not going to do it. He is all braggadocio, but he doesn't. When it comes down to testifying before Mueller, he has no idea what he's going to get himself into. Because if he lies, he doesn't know what they've been told. He thinks he knows everything. So I think it's going to be a very interesting. But I don't think he's going to testify. I think that's 100%. I can pretty much say that.
Well, we'll have to see. See, I don't keep up with politics like that. So it's
you know why it's important to keep up? Because it affects our lives. It affects our lives. This is stuff that affects our lives. I mean, this is like with the economy, right? So they're not pushing for increased wages. You know why they give away bonuses? Because they don't have to pay payroll taxes. So they give people an extra $1,000 a year, but then they don't give you the $3,000 or $4,000 that you actually deserve, so you can live better. Take you from earning $15,000 to $20,000 at the low bottom level is a big jump for that. It's a quarter of their income.
Absolutely. That's a substantial amount.
Yes, but see, this is the illogic. This is why these people don't understand this economy. Like this bubble, he's creating this bubble. There's like this burst of energy that's been poured into the economy. Yeah, things are going to go good. But once the effects of the rolling back of the chemicals, I mean, the reason we've had these regulations, and part of what they're counting on is the courts to be tied up so that things don't go through the courts. So this is why they buy out the judges. I mean, this is why everything is politics, and we're at a time where I'm beginning to think this is why I think for me, Guy McPherson is beginning to sound logical, because really, we're not dealing with rational players here. And we're not talking about people who want to play with us and, negotiate, because they don't have to. They have all the beans are in their pocket. You know what I mean? They don't need to deal with us. That's why they don't care if you and I are on the air. That's why they pay their little internet trolls to try to harass us to make us stay off the internet, because they don't care.
The YouTube simulcast of this show yesterday got 18 dislikes out of 44 views.
Yes.
And I don't know, you heard the show. Was I boring?
No, I know what this is. It's me. They're targeting the show because, but there's a variety of reasons. But part of it, and I've noticed this, is it goes up. I haven't listened to it, so, but I venture to say that my name came up inside the little hour clip that Dana Durnford did on Helen Caldecott, Chris Busby, and Arnie Gunderson, because Dana did this. You can listen to it and see if my name came up, but this seems to happen because he's got an army of people who will go out and seek you and tell you how horrible you are if you support somebody like Chris Busby, like I do. Dana seems to think that those three people have harmed humanity irreparably because they have all refused to come out and publicly say that number 4 fuel got blown up. Originally, they might admit to it now that we're beginning to see more information, but they're pretty hesitant to say that, right? They don't.
What, the Unit 4 Fukushima?
Yeah, they're saying that they're publicly. None of them say that Fukushima has been fixed. None of them say that Fukushima isn't an ongoing disaster. None of them say that it's a dangerous site and it's a horrible thing for our environment, that we need to stop it now. They all believe that, they're all basically, but I don't quite get his logic, but so I wouldn't worry about the dislikes. So I just don't worry about it because those are just internet trolls. They're just people who get mad at us because we support, because I support Chris Busby, and whatever. I don't care what they think. We're entitled to support who we want. They're not murdering the planet. You know who's murdering the planet? Whoever started all those people in Davos, those are the ones, this is the weird part. Trader Trump brought his entire administration with him to Davos. That is the creepiest. If you look at all the elected officials that he brought with him, it was like 6 times the elected. He brought every head of every state, to go talk and make deals. These people are using our government for personal gain. It is so offensive to me, right out in the open. They have no values. But I guess that's the state of things. But, so how do we get people to keep on taking right action? It's called what? Inspired action, right?
Yeah, and especially on things that are critical. I think that a lot of what it is the devices that we have distract us to the point that we don't notice things that is as a species, at least in the first world, we don't notice things as much, even though we have access to an unlimited amount of information. Because the device distracts us and points our focus in directions that it wants us to go instead of the directions that we want us to go. How many times have you gone to the internet to look for something and ended up shopping for shoes, for instance? Oh, that's it. What? Oh, what's this? Oh, click. Oh, all of a sudden you're on a whole different tangent than you originally intended. Okay, and that original intention is now gone, and your intention is whatever this device is telling you to do. So we're losing our root.
Yeah, but that's capitalism.
Root power over ourselves.
That's capitalism.
I think that's social engineering. It's not capitalism.
Yeah, that's
capitalism.
Well, let's
as well
put it this way:
social engineering.
Capitalism is a good part of the tool of the social engineering.
Right.
Because if you distract people with things and they're busy getting their stuff and then they get invested in those things and it becomes normal, they don't care. That's the interesting part is a lot of people they don't really care as long as they keep getting what they've had. As long as they can keep their lifestyle, they're not very invested in the justice of it all, of what's going to happen to the environment. I mean, somehow people have disassociated their actions and their behavior with their well-being.
Right.
It's interesting.
Exactly. So we are victimized by, and it's the same individuals are funding the devices which are so cheap. I mean, we've got. Think about it. Right now, I'm on Verizon's website, and I'm looking at a $160 device, which has internet capability, phone functionality, HD video recording and playback, access to all the networks in the world. Okay, and for $70 plus $50 a month or $40 a month, I can literally get sucked into this device. This device is manufactured and created and funded by the same group of people who are spraying the skies. Okay, the same group of people, just in a different department, let's call it. But it's all the same thing. It's all part of the one, in my opinion, big engineering project, the human engineering project. And it could be that we would undergo a sudden mutation. I mean, I remember I saw
They're working on it. You must listen to Jules' show. They're working on it. They're doing it. This is not like if they will. It is on. It's on. I mean, the assault. World War III seriously is on. I don't know if World War II ever ended. But for sure, we're in a whole different world of subversive, coercive warfare. And they're doing these things like they are attempting to... I think I told you this, I saw a video from naturalnews.net. And he took a chicken McNugget and put it under a mega microscope. And you could actually see some nanotechnology fibers in there.
Yes. Yeah, or other fibers. We don't know what kind of fibers they were, but yeah,
or
and so
something,
people
but it certainly was not chicken.
It reminds me of a show I saw, one of those little science fiction quickie shows many years ago, where all of a sudden certain individuals in the population, their eyes changed and their skin changed, and nobody could figure it out. They didn't feel sick. But nobody could figure it out. And then suddenly at the same time, they realize, the frequency spectrum, the spectral output of the sun is changing. And so basically the people who changed were the ones that were able to adapt to the new frequency specification of the sun. And so it was there in our DNA all along. It just had to be triggered. And unfortunately, we're with our devices, with our computing technology, we have the ability to peer into DNA and try to understand DNA and try to mimic. And, they're getting ready to use DNA as a computer, basically building a brain.
Yeah, well, didn't you hear, this is a thought on the YouTubes anyways, Thomas Ackerman talked about this, how the Bitcoin, they're using the Bitcoin. He had heard someone talk about this, the Bitcoin, or maybe he did, I don't know, but you know how they use the Bitcoin, the chain block from the Bitcoin, how Bitcoin works, they create a chain block. Well, they're using that technology to disseminate the DNA, that it's actually a reflection of our DNA.
Really?
Or something like that. Yeah, it's, you know me, I'm weak on the science stuff, so that seemed kind of, I don't know, maybe it is.
It kind of makes sense that blockchains and DNA would both be endlessly complicated.
Yeah, well, go listen to Thomas's dissertations on the Bitcoin. He doesn't speak too highly of it, and then he has links in there from when he heard other YouTubers talking about this, and if we follow those links, we can usually find the original source.
Yeah, well, Bitcoin is just another move by the capitalists to consolidate power. And because whoever owns the server that the Bitcoin lives on has all the money, there's no actual value behind it. It's an intrinsic value. And the value in a Bitcoin is derived from finding the solution to the code, to the problem. It's like a super hard math problem, and creating the solution to that math problem takes so many CPU cycles, okay, and that equates to money, and so they equate the value of the Bitcoin to how many CPU cycles it takes to solve the code, to crack the code.
What
because
code?
It's not like that's what a blockchain is. It's a code. And it has to be solved through
what I understand a blockchain is it's like this place where every time there's a transaction, everyone can see it. Everyone who has the code. This is the thing about the Bitcoin. When you buy into Bitcoin, you get an entrance code. If you lose that entrance code, you're screwed. You can't get into your account. You lose it.
Right. Either you mine Bitcoins. Pretty much most people don't buy Bitcoins. They mine them.
What does that mean, mine them?
That mining Bitcoins is literally churning through CPU cycles to break the code, the blockchain code.
Meaning they go in and rob the Bitcoin.
No, they don't. They put forth a very complicated math problem, which takes tens of millions of calculations to solve.
I don't know. That's not what I heard it was, Jerome.
And then then look it up. And then the creation, the actual work that it takes to break this code, this creates the value in the code. That's basically what a Bitcoin is. And so when they mine them, they set these rooms full of computers hacking away at this code and solving these equations. And every once in a while, one will pop up. Oh, got one. All right, there's $1,000. Okay, that's how it works. And if you have the answer to the code, then that is proof that you solved the code. And if you solve the code, that means that you spent this many CPU cycles, which is a given basic value. And of course, in any system that's capitalistic, possession is 9/10, and the price can vary based upon demand. So if you got everybody all of a sudden wanting to buy into Bitcoin, each Bitcoin becomes progressively more valuable. But they start with a base value that is derived from the solution time it takes to solve the basic. So that's how Bitcoin works.
That's what this says. The mining process involves compiling recent transactions into blocks and trying to solve a computationally difficult puzzle. The participant who first solves the puzzle gets to place the next block on the blockchain and claim the rewards. The rewards, which incentivize mining, are both the transaction fees associated with the transaction compiled in the block, as well as newly released Bitcoin. So you get the fees for adding the block, plus you get a piece of Bitcoin. Exactly.
So that's how Bitcoin, that's the value. It's not just something that they decided to create and add a value to it. The value is based on the actual amount of computational power. And believe it or not, on a regular computer, you could set up your laptop as a Bitcoin miner, okay, and turn it on, and it would run your CPU at 100%. And you might, perhaps, get one a year, maybe one. Your computer, with its full power, would have perhaps enough to where you could do one a year. Okay, so how much money in electricity would you spend to generate that one Bitcoin? You know, the full power of a 100-watt computer or a 200-watt computer, okay, 24/7. So think of how many kilowatts that equals. Think of how much money those kilowatts cost. Okay, that's what gives this Bitcoin its value initially. And then the transaction fees and this and that, that all creates other added value, which is what I was just referring to a minute ago, that market price thing. I'm not going to let this one go for less than $1,200. Well, okay, here you go. Now it's worth $1,200. And I've watched Bitcoin go from 150, 200 a few years ago to well over 1,000 now. And I actually had an opportunity to get in and trade Bitcoin. See, they don't buy and sell them; they trade them. And so that's how Bitcoins work. And then the value raises, and then you can get other Bitcoins with the Bitcoin that you already have for interest on it, so to speak. So yeah, it's all capitalism, and it's all ones and zeros. And if the big computer goes down, then it's all gone, and there's no way that you can recover it.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's not centrally stored, and it's a very clever system that's designed to not ever be able to collapse. If you lost electricity everywhere, it would collapse.
You can get into it starting at $5.
Right.
Business Insider did a story last month in December, and it tells you how can you buy Bitcoin. So they definitely want people to be buying Bitcoin.
Yeah, they sink our resources into an intrinsically not valuable thing.
So when the market crashes, your money's in Bitcoin, there's really nothing you can do about it. You knew about it when you went in.
Right, and what that would also do is sublet and replace the stock market eventually. That's what they would like. They would like that company's values to be based in Bitcoin, not in dollars. The price of oil to be based in Bitcoin, not dollar.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we need to keep our intentions higher, and it's very easy to get oppressed by all of this collusion, coercion, oppression. Knowing that we're in the belly of the monster. Frankly, there's not much we can do about what it's doing out there to the rest of the world, except we can push back and put our intentions higher and create an energy so that it can be stopped. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. That's just my idea, because when I look at it, I guess that's why Guy McPherson doesn't look that outrageous to me. Because if the methane escapes I think there's 800 gigatons of methane off the coast of Russia. That looks like it could explode if 50,000, who would they say, 50 or 15, I forget. I think it's 50,000 gigatons goes into the atmosphere. It will change the atmosphere. Just the methane will create that the atmospheric changes, so that it'll create like we're going to have severe issues within shortly 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that. I
Well,
firmly
that's the
believe
thing,
that. I hate
Jerome.
to
Does
say
it really matter what we believe? This is where I'm at. I wish we had a few more minutes, but I wish we could explore this a little bit more. Does it matter what you believe? Because everybody believes. We have our own facts. And the reality is the planet is dying. Like, look at
Yeah.
the mass animal deaths. Look at the number of dead birds that fall out of the sky and the chickens that they have to kill for, quote, avian flu. You notice it's always avian flu.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
It is very possible, just like Dane Wigington said in that little thing, that when the paradigm shift happens, it will happen very quickly, and it's already underway. So what we're seeing right now is a non-starting situation, I guess you could call it, with the nuclear. We've got huge, giant amounts of long-lived, very lethal isotopes in the environment now that we created that are going to wreak havoc on living organisms for the next 3,000 or 4,000 years. Minimum that much. And it's like just that alone, in my opinion. That's a slow wave of poison which is covering the entire planet, and it will even out. And when it does, it will inhibit the ability of life on this planet to exist anymore in the way that it does now. Because it'll be mutated, and it'll be basically distorted by the radiation. And so nature, in its miraculous wonder, which produces perfection, in the skies. If we weren't here, the skies would be blue. There'd be no radiation. It would be an iconic, idyllic world that we have. Okay, but we are here, and so we have terraformed this planet. And by terraforming it, we have created issues that are going to affect us because we don't have the wisdom, though we may have some of the technology to do that effectively. I'm sure in the Star Trekian world there is methods of climate modification on a planetary scale that would be like, oh, look at that, you made our planet livable. But not using heavy metal powders, and radiation, and I'm talking about the creation of these totally hideously radioactive isotopes is a positive thing. And everybody's so worried about, Russia's going to buy half of our uranium. It's like, why is uranium even a valuable thing? It shouldn't be. Uranium is a toxic metal that we should not be messing with at all. We don't need to. We've got solar. We even have the filthy greenhouse coal and other things that we could do instead. But we don't. And I think the reason we don't is because the cabal, those who would, do what they are going to do. And they do whatever they're going to do, whatever. That's it. What are you going to do about it? Little pitiful humans. We're not going to do anything. And then if you do decide to rise up, and even if you get violent, we own the military. How long do you think you'll last? How long do you think your rebel movement will last if 15 Marines with AR-15s walk in and shoot your wife in the head, say she was resisting, and what are you going to say? Oh, now you're dead too. Done. That's the way these people think. And so I in a lot of ways, Lonnie, I really feel like we're up the creek without a ladder. And in other ways, I feel hopeful that maybe, despite that, humanity can take back itself from the cabal.
Yeah, well, that's what we're working on, Jerome. That's why we refuse. We have to just have our vibrations be at a higher level. So
that's right. So we're getting ready to
talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Put your courage feet on.
Yep.